Do you know the truth about top shelf weed? For the longest time, I used to think that it meant it was the best quality, the highest THC percentage. Like, if we're going to the Cannabis Cup today, this is the one we're gonna bring to win. I used to think that it meant it was the best bud that they sold in the store, and everything else just wasn't as good. Well, after living in Colorado for a few years and working in the cannabis industry, I learned that for most places and most cannabis businesses, that's simply not the case. That's not how they determine which weed is their top shelf weed. So one of my first jobs was at a dispensary. I worked as a bud tender, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of the different things that go on. And one of the first things that I realized is cannabis is batch-based. It's like produce, for example, like fruits and vegetables. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're in between. You're not always going to go get a Honeycrisp apple and it's going to look and taste the same as the last one you got. That's the same for weed. That's the same for sour diesel. That's the same for OG Kush. It's not always going to look and smell and taste the same as that one time when you got it. One of the strains that we had at our dispensary was Girl Scout cookies. I think another one of the top shelf strains was Chocolate, if I remember correctly. One time we just got a batch of it where it was like 4 out of 10, bro. It was like doo-doo mids. I was thinking like, there's no way that we're gonna be able to sell this for the top shelf price. And I was calling the manager like, hey bro, they brought us a shipment of this and bro, it's garbage. It's shit tier mids. What do I do with it? And the manager was like, sell it. Put it in the jar with the regular top shelf stuff and sell it. We gotta get that money on it. And I was shocked, right? I was shocked that we were gonna try to sell it as top shelf. And the reason was, and this is really the truth about top shelf, was we were selling it as top shelf based on the yield of the plant, okay? This strain, the Girl Scout cookies, yielded half as much per plant as the rest of the strains in the dispensary on average. But it was popular and everybody wanted to get Girl Scout cookies at the time, so we had to have it. But we really didn't get as much per plant. And I learned from asking around and checking with a lot of dispensaries that a lot of the time their top shelf weed, what they would refer to as top shelf weed, just ended up being the sativas that took a little bit longer to flower, right? From a growing perspective, an indica flowers in like 7 to 9 weeks, 8 weeks on average. And a sativa takes like 10 to 12, sometimes more. There are some that take like up to 14 weeks, even longer to flower. And this means that you're going to get less weed over time on average. Think about it from a business perspective. If they're trying to sell as much weed as they can't spend that extra month, that extra 4 weeks in flowering just waiting for the weed to be ready. They're trying to push it out as quickly as they can. So anything with like shorter flowering time is going to be sold much more often and it's easier to sell. And this is one of the issues I have here in Florida when I try to buy concentrates. It's like almost impossible to find a sativa concentrate. Every time I go buy live resin, they have all kinds of indicas and hybrids. Typically the stuff with like a 7 to 9 week flower time. And there are sativa options, but it's just like so few and far in between that I can rarely get them. Which kind of makes me think that like for the future, we're just going to have less and less growers growing sativa. It takes a month longer on average for a sativa. It doesn't mean that it's better or that it's worse. It's just different, you know what I mean? And for a lot of these places, their top shelf weed is just their sativas that take a little longer. So that was one thing that opened my eyes up to the cannabis industry, is just really check the quality of what you're getting. Don't let somebody tell you that it's top shelf. Determine for yourself that it's top shelf. Just because they're charging twice as much for the weed doesn't mean that it's going to be twice as good. I mean, it could be 5% better, but twice as much. And I'm not about the quality of a quantity one. It's 5% better, but it costs 100% more. So let me know what you think about top shelf. Some people only buy top shelf. They just go in and say, what's the best? That's what I want. And if you want to know about dabbing with lasers, check out this video. I'm dabbing with lasers.